Salutations and welcome, horse racing fans. I'm your host, Matthew DeSantis, and this is the Win Play Show, a podcast devoted to all aspects of horse racing and handicapping that is proudly part of the Amalfi Media Network. In this episode, we're taking a break from handicapping and capping horse races to bring you a great interview with a rising name in the sport, jockey agent Jose Santos Jr., who I speak with about his famous family, breaking in as a jockey agent at the age of 16, how he manages such a large client base, his plans for 2022, and more. Now, before we get to the interview, just a quick reminder to follow, download, rate, review, and share the Win Play Show on the podcast platform of your choice. Additionally, you can follow the Win Play Show on YouTube by subscribing to our channel, and you can find that link in the episode notes. Finally, head over to amalfimedia.com to get all of our horse racing coverage, from picks to previews to interviews, blogs, podcasts, and so much more. We have the biggest news in the sport, and you can also follow me on Twitter at the handle @FailedToMenace. Okay, well, let's move on to the interview. Today, I am pleased to be joined by jockey agent Jose Santos Jr., who represents riders primarily in the Midwest and the Southeast, but has really burst onto the scene over the last several years. Jose may be a young man, but he is a horse racing lifer and has come from a family where his father, his four uncles, and many other family members were all involved in the horse racing industry, mostly and primarily as jockeys. His father, of course, Jose Santos Sr., received national acclaim when he won the 2003 Kentucky Derby and Preakness aboard Funny Cide. His son, Jose Santos Jr., started representing jockeys at the tender age of 16 and continued to be a jockey agent while being a full-time college student and earning his degree at Bellarmine University in Louisville, Kentucky. Since starting out, Jose has grown his operation to representing multiple jockeys at several different colonies across the country, such as Ry Eikelberry at Sam Houston, Reylu Gutierrez at the fairgrounds, in addition to riders at Oaklawn, Turfway Park, and more. In our interview, I talked to Jose about how he broke into the business, how he has managed to get the best rides for his jockeys, what his plans are for expansion in 2022, and more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my interview with Jose Santos Jr. Jose, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your insight and perspective with our listeners. I always like to start at the beginning with my guests, and a common theme that I have found in this industry is that it is a family business. Your dad was a jockey, very famously rode Funny Cide to victory at the 2003 Derby and Preakness. And so I'm curious, growing up around the sport, when did you realize you wanted to make a career in the horse racing industry?
Oof. As long as I can remember. Yeah, I don't think I ever had a point in my life where I thought I would do anything else besides work in horse racing. Initially, it was to be a jockey, That's kind of what I always thought. I've got both my grandparents were jockeys. I've got four uncles that were jockeys. My
Wow.
dad was a jockey, so I always thought, my whole life I would be a jockey, and that's pretty much what I was focused on doing, and, just got too big and found other avenues, but it was always going to be horse racing. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's very awesome. I know sometimes people try to break from their family, but I think that's great that it's that you try to, embrace that.
Oh yeah, I got bit with the bug early.
Yeah, it's an easy one. It's an easy bug to get bit with.
Absolutely.
So you, obviously you were around horse racing your whole life. I actually am going to date myself a little bit. I mean, I remember seeing you on TV at the 2003, Derby and Preakness. And so you've been around it, for your whole life, obviously, but you broke in professionally at a very young age, starting doing some jockey agenting, as a teenager. And, I think you're someone that a lot of people look up to because you work really hard behind the scenes. You were going to college, doing jockeying, being an agent for jockeys, doing play-by-play for your college basketball team. You were burning the candle at both ends. And so I'm curious, kind of, what gave, where did you find that work ethic? Where did you find that drive, that entrepreneurial spirit, just to get involved in so many different things at such a young age?
My parents, honestly, both of them extremely hardworking people, work till today. My dad, I mean, he came from a very large family in a very poor town, in a very poor country, and he found his way out and came to America and made something of himself. And same goes for my mom's side of her family. She moved to America when she was 6 months old with her family
Wow.
from Panama, to Calder actually. That's
Mhm.
also where my father moved when he came to America from Chile to Calder. And they've always instilled in us, all my siblings, work hard, be humble, and nothing, don't take anything for granted, because nothing was given to either one of my parents. They had to go get it. So I'm fortunate where they gave me a great situation in life, to where I had a lot in front of me, and but you still got to go get it, and I plan on doing that my whole life.
Well, that's great. And you're just getting started and you've already made a huge name for yourself. And so I'm excited to see what the future holds. Um, so I'm going to ask maybe a very simple question. As I mentioned in the introduction, you are a jockey agent, and I have a lot of listeners to the podcast who are maybe just casual horse racing fans. And so, like I said, very simple question. If you could just explain a little bit about what a jockey agent does. I think a lot of people have a general sense of what agents do in sports, but I know in horse racing it's a little bit different. So, what is your day to day look like? What is the function of a jockey agent?
Well, my day to day, I'll wake up in the morning, go to the backside, talk to the trainers, dealing with entries a lot of those days with the amount of racetracks I work at now. Usually, you have entries every couple of days, but for me, it's about 6, 7 days out of the week I'm entering at some racetrack. So handling those entries, do the draw. After that, I'll just spend the rest of the time going through charts, looking for horses for upcoming races. And that's generally the job of, most jockeys, agents. It's how we handle it. Set up morning workouts as well. But really, I'm just paying attention to what I think is going to be happening. Once they draw those races, my work's done. That's
Hmm.
it's up to the trainers and jockeys and horse from there. So I'm just moving on to the next week to see what else is coming up.
So you're always looking for those potential openings for your jockeys then.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And generally, you have your main clients trainer wise that you check on what they're going to be entering, and then see where you're open from there and try to get the best horses available.
Absolutely. Um, so prior to becoming an agent for jockeys, were there other agents? I know, I saw somewhere that your father did a little bit of agenting after he retired.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, was there advice that you got from other agents or mentors you had in the industry outside of your family that you looked to for advice in terms of helping you with your career and giving you that guidance?
Yeah, agent wise, absolutely. Ron Anderson, someone I always try to reach out to. For me, my whole life, that's just the guy I looked up to when it comes to the agenting world. So I always, anytime I have a question where I'm like, I don't know what to do, I reach out to him, and he's always been, really helpful with that. Ruben Munoz, he's Ricardo Santana's agent. We've always been really close since I was a little kid. He's a family friend, so he's always been there to hear me out. Nelson Arroyo, who's Norberto Arroyo's brother and agent. He's not agenting at the moment, but he got me started in Kentucky. He got me with my first rider, and he was instrumental in helping me out as well. I've reached out to Jimmy Riccio a lot, Jose Ortiz's agent,
Hmm.
but a lot of it just kind of observing what other agents do, and,
Hmm.
see what I like, see what I don't like that some people do, and just try to, form it into my own thing. But even outside of agents, like I'm lucky. I grew up my whole life, my John Velasquez is my sister's godfather. I grew up going to Angel Cordero's house, and,
Hmm.
I could walk into Lucas's barn anytime I wanted and ask for any form of advice on life or, just work. So I'm extremely fortunate, and, I'm just trying to take what they taught me since I was a little kid and, form it into what I can do with myself now.
Yeah, absolutely. So you kind of referenced this a little bit in your previous answer, but I'm curious, how did you manage to get your first few jockeys to agree to kind of book mounts for them? Because you were really young, and I mean, jockeys tend to be young, so they might have only been a few years older than you. But I'd imagine there was a little bit of a leap of faith, putting, their livelihood in the hands of a teenager who was just breaking into the business. So I was curious, kind of, how did you get those first few agents? How did you slowly grow your your company? How did you slowly grow your brand and reach out?
Yeah, so the first jockey I had was Eddie Dominguez at Calder, and he was, probably a lower level rider at the time over there, and his career's actually flourished since then. He's become a regular rider in the Ohio circuit, but at the time he didn't have an agent, no one representing him. He was new to America, and I was new to wanting to be an agent, and I grew up at Calder, so everybody knew me there. I'd spend the whole summer there. It used to be 9 months out of the year we'd race there, so they all knew me as a little kid, and he could tell that I at least knew what I was doing, and he needed somebody. So that was kind of how I got my introduction. Then in Kentucky, like I said, Nelson Arroyo, he got me my first rider I ever had in Kentucky was a jockey named Aldo Conchano.
Mhm.
A month and a half after that, I picked up DDL Osorio, who was close family with Ricardo Santana, who I've known for a long time. And I worked with DDL for 2.5 years. And, we were fortunate we won an Ellis Park meet together. And that kind of validated, I feel like to people that, okay, he knows what he's doing.
Mhm.
My first big breakout job was definitely picking up David Cabrera, who I
Mhm.
still represent today. And, from there, it just kind of snowballed to people having interest in me to be their agent. And with COVID, happening the way it did, we all had to start working at home. And I always had this idea of, representing riders in different states, but it wasn't really possible because no one had done it, and when we all had to stay at home, we had to contact all the trainers over the phone anyway. And it
Yeah.
felt like the right time to push forward with it. And now it's what I think it is, at least the trainers I deal with, it's becoming normal to them. And, I don't see it stopping now.
Yeah, so I want to follow up on that point a little bit because one of the things that does make you quite distinct is that you represent jockeys at multiple colonies across the country, and so logistically, kind of what was because it's a very uncommon thing, and so I'm curious, kind of maybe first of all, kind of why is it uncommon, and what gave you the idea even before COVID of wanting to take that leap and try to make this more of a corporate or federated structure in terms of having multiple jockeys at multiple colonies.
Right. Well, I guess what made me want to take that leap would be having a lot of time. When I was just representing one jockey, I was charting it, or two jockeys on the same circuit. I was charting it to the extent that I possibly could, but that was still only like 4 days out of my day. And it's
Hmm.
just I knew I had more to do. And especially if I worked out a system to where like, okay, I've got people who do kind of the easier task of it, the grouping and all that, and then I can make
Hmm.
the decision making, which is kind of the model which I'm following now. And I truly believe that I could do that at as many racetracks across America as humanly possible. I really do. It would take, of course, hiring more people to do kind of the legwork on the bottom, but that's
Sure.
kind of the grouping aspect of it. And once that's figured out, I can make decisions, and I have the connections with the people to kind of expand off of that. And like I said, I really don't think there's a limit to the amount of racetracks I can do that with.
So I'm curious, there are, and you would know this better than I would, but there are some limitations on the number of
Yeah.
jockeys you can represent at a particular track. So
At a
that,
particular state. Yeah.
okay, in a particular state. So talk a little bit maybe about some of the constraints that you might face in that regard. Some of bigger states like California that has, multiple tracks, or New York, or Kentucky, obviously.
Well, I do believe that agents in California, there's some agents that have riders in Southern and Northern California.
Oh,
So
okay.
I don't know the exact rules on that because I've never dipped into it, but I do know that that does happen. But most states, it's, two journeymen and an apprentice, or three
Okay.
riders total, or, just only two journeymen. So you just got to know the state rules,
Hmm.
don't break those state rules, and keep it, within those restraints. And like I said, as time wise and, efficiency wise, I really don't think I have a cap.
Yeah. So one of the things you'd already talked a little bit about what your typical day is. You're here in Hot Springs, Arkansas, obviously right by Oaklawn. Maybe talk a little bit about what your day is like at Oaklawn in terms of, do you go to the track there in the morning now? And what's it like in terms of trying to balance that with what's going on at the other tracks that your jockeys might be at across the country?
Right. So whatever state I'm in, whether I'm at Oaklawn or, making my rounds at the fairgrounds, or I'm always at a racetrack in the morning, no matter what.
Mhm.
I try to make that very important because, just sitting at home. I mean, I get a lot done sitting at home, but you got to go and see certain people and just make sure, things are going well. And I do to, try to make a point to check in at the multiple racetracks I work at and just make sure everything's functioning the way I want it to function. And, I'm not missing anything. But I just have my phone on me, usually have an AirPod in, and, when people call me, text me, I'm hearing it and quick to respond. I'm lucky I grew up in a generation where I'm quick on my phone, I'm
Yeah.
good with technology and, I can multitask really well. I think, I can hold a conversation and be responding to somebody. And I
Yeah.
really don't feel like I miss a beat. Maybe sometimes I do and I apologize, but, I'm just trying to be as efficient as possible, but
Yeah.
it's pretty, it's pretty manageable. It's a little stressful, but it's manageable.
Yeah. So you mentioned this earlier, and I'm just curious when you talk about charting a race. Obviously, I do my shows on handicapping a lot of times, and so that's the way I think about racing. But obviously, you're looking at it in a totally different way before they even do those draws. So, explain a little bit about what charting a race is like for you.
So my goal is to know every single horse on the backside that I work at. That's my goal. I want to know every single horse because I want to know exactly what I got to run against. I want to know if this race is going to fill or if it doesn't have enough horses on, the property to fill. So the way I'll do that is going through old race charts at racetracks that kind of funnel into the one I'm at, as well as go through the work tabs. I always, every day, go through the work tab, check every single horse that worked. My line of thinking is if the horse worked there, they're most likely going to run there. Sometimes you're wrong, they ship out, but generally that only happens because the race isn't available where
Yeah.
they're at. So that's mainly how I do it. And really, it's time consuming, most definitely, but it's by far the most efficient way to do it. And you're going to be right about 95% of the time.
So, one of the other things I'm just interested in is, you've grown your operation significantly over the years, and you've grown the number of jockeys that you've had, and things like that. How does that work in terms of maybe getting a new jockey to come over to you? I mean, is it, because I'd imagine there's some professional, there's a balance there. You don't want to try to, recruit somebody else's jockey, that's represented by someone else. And there's some professionalism there. But I'm just curious, kind of how does the politics of that work a little bit? Or, is there a jockey who's just trying to break into a new track, perhaps a new circuit? Kind of how do you go about trying to increase your jockey stable, so to speak?
Well, I mean, I can give you a rundown of. I've got 8 riders right now that I
Hmm.
represent. For instance, David Cabrera. I picked up David Cabrera's book because Richard Aramia suggested him to me
Hmm.
when he was going to Oaklawn for the first time in 2018. He was riding at Remington. He had been lined out with a different agent. The agent, told him he had to go a different direction, and he'd asked Richard what to do. And I'd been in contact with Richard before about possibly working for him, and he said, there's this guy who goes down there who I think you would do really good with. And David and I have been together ever since, and it's been extremely successful for the both of us. Reylu, I was trying to get Reylu for like 6 months, actively going after him because I could tell he needed a change.
Yeah.
And I knew if he came and tried this out, it would work. I
Yeah.
knew the kind of rider he was. I know the kind of person he is, and I just knew it was going to fit well. And, we've been really lucky to where it has.
Hmm.
Uh, Lane Luzzy, he reached out to me. I've known Lane my whole life. We grew up together, and we've been working on the same circuits. And the timing just kind of worked out to where he felt it was time for a change. It was perfect, for me because Lane's an extremely talented rider that everybody knows over there. So, the two worlds just collected well, and I think it's going to be a really successful partnership. Ry Eikelberry, a guy who I recently
Yeah.
just started working with, we had a great first week together.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah,
I was
7
watching
for
that. Yeah.
14 with 3 seconds and a third. I mean, I've never done that before in an opening week, so that was awesome. But Carl Broberg and Austin Gustafson had a
Yeah.
lot to do with that. Both people I do a lot of business with. They both wanted to ride him, and
Yeah.
he needed an agent, and they both said, "Look, this is who we like to use, and he's going to do a great job for you." And hopefully, he feels that way. That I'm doing the best I can for him because that's my goal. Freddie Manrique. He is someone who's been a long friend of mine for a couple years, and he was going to Oklahoma, and I need a rider in Oklahoma, and we just kind of started working together, and it's been a full year now, and his business has grown as well, so that's been pretty cool to see. Manny Esquivel, I actually asked him about coming to Oaklawn
Uh,
because he generally stays at Turfway. His uncle is Cipriano Contreras. So my idea was, Cipriano does great at Oaklawn. He'd been at Oaklawn in the past himself and done really well. And then when the Turfway book came out, Cipriano told him, I'm going to be leaving horses at Turfway if you want to stay close to the family. And he was interested in that. And the first track I worked at in Kentucky was Turfway. So I have relationships there, and it's worked out great. I believe we're tied for the lead right now in the standings. We're either in
okay.
front or in second place, but we're having a really great meet, and I'm loving working with Manny. He's the ultimate professional, great guy, and an extremely talented rider. And then the two apprentices I have Rene Diaz, who I've known him since I was a little kid as well. He grew up at Calder. His dad and my dad are good friends, and he started off at Gulfstream, and things were kind of going slow for him. And he's got a lot of talent. Like I've never seen somebody who's ridden less than 100 races look as good as he does on a horse.
Wow.
And my
Okay.
father feels the same way, and there's a lot of people who feel that way. I'm
Okay.
truly, truly, really excited about Rene Diaz, and he's doing great. He's won 5 races so far at the fairgrounds. Got mounts this week for Amos, Stidham, Gary Scherer. So he's breaking into really good barns, and I think it's only going to go up with him. And then Kylie Jordan's another apprentice that she's really talented as well. She's won 31 races already in her career, and her agent from Iowa wasn't coming here to Oaklawn, so he reached out to me and asked if I had an open spot and if I was interested. And we spoke, and it's been a good combination thus far. She's coming back off an injury. She's going to start back up this week, but we're just going to get back to building up that business. When Will Rogers starts, she'll start riding at Will Rogers as well. Try to ride as many races as possible while she still has that bug, for experience reasons. And that's kind of how it's gone there. And I'm not afraid to reach out to a rider if I think I have a better opportunity to give them, because that's my job. I mean, people are going to reach out to my riders. People are going to reach out for horses I ride. That's part of it, But if I think I can truly, if we can have a good relationship and it's going to be successful and lead to good things for the both of us, then, I'm down to face any challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned Reylu earlier, and obviously he's having a big year, but 2021 was a year for you that I'd imagine had some incredible highs, but also some difficult times. And sadly, this fall, we lost Miguel Mina in a very tragic accident. And I know he's someone with whom you had a personal and professional relationship with. And then just a couple of months later, you mentioned Reylu goes on this incredible hot streak at fairgrounds, and you're getting all of this national attention. And so I'm just curious kind of what it was like to manage and deal with what had to have just been a flood of emotions over the last maybe 3 months of 2021 of highs and lows, and how you kind of managed to keep an even keel through all of that.
Yeah, losing Miguel was tough. I'm not going to sit here and act like it was just something you can just roll off. I worked for Miguel for 2 years, 2.5 years. I was friends with Miguel prior to that, and there wasn't a person who didn't like Miguel. It's not easy for any of us to go to the racetrack in the morning and you don't see Miguel anymore. He's just somebody who brightened up your day. You could not stay mad at Miguel. It's impossible. Anyone will tell you that. He was just such a good, genuine person, and he just made days better, just by being around and, saying something funny or even just a smile, so, and you just kind of got to push through it. I got a lot of responsibility on my hand. A lot of people who entrust in me to make sure that their careers are going the right way. And, it wasn't the first terrible situation in my life. And, I've just kind of learned to push through those times and, keep my head down and keep working, because I got to keep, doing my thing at the same time. And it doesn't change that he's going to be missed every day, though. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And then,
to your point, pushing through, and then you experience these really incredible highs with Reylu at fairgrounds, winning all these stakes races and on favorites, on long shots, and just, and I'm just, I guess maybe as a follow-up, does your job get easier or more difficult when Reylu goes on this sort of a run? Is it that people all of a sudden come out of the blue, start calling you, and trainers are a lot more eager to pick up your call, or
right.
What's it like?
It picks up for sure. Like, I'm not going to, of course, when you win, people want you, it's
Right.
definitely picking up, but it was picking up into that. You know what I mean? We've been building up to this, and I truly felt it was bound to happen, with Reylu. He was working so hard. He was, proving himself time in and time out with all these rides that, okay, this guy's got a lot of talent. This guy's got a lot of talent. And it was a week that we really aimed for. You knew it was there. The stake schedule comes out early. We attacked certain horses, and it worked out, and he had to put on some serious rides to get it done, and he did. And, people expect that from him now, and it definitely opened up a lot of doors. But as for the workload on my end, that doesn't change. I'm going to be putting in the same amount of work, whether I can get those horses or I can't, because, I want to know what's happening. I need to know what's happening to be able to fall into things that, hopefully some other people don't see.
Yeah. So You mentioned the varied rides that Reylu gave over that weekend. I mean, some coming from off the pace, some being, kind of front runners, and so you really did see kind of his array of jockeying ability in that. I'm curious, are there times where you have a jockey who may have a certain style that will just fit well with a particular horse, and is that kind of part of your equation of going, listen, this jockey, he or she's really aggressive out of the gate. Looks like this horse needs an aggressive jockey out of the gate. This would seem to be a good match. Or, does that kind of factor into some of your equation occasionally?
Oh, absolutely. You definitely want to find a good fit for your rider, or if I've noticed that my rider, rode the horse and they had a lot of success and it was in a different barn than before, I'll tell that trainer, this rider's won on this horse a bunch of times. Hopefully we can hook up and try to find the right spot. And it's generally a good amount part of the sales pitch. You want to find horses that your riders are going to fit well. And I'm fortunate to where I got some talented riders, and they do a lot of different things really well. So don't have to worry about it all the time, but definitely you'll see situations, or really just watch a race, and not every jockey's going to fit every horse. It's going to happen to every single rider, including mine. But I'll see a race and see maybe a jockey ride a horse that I didn't think, got exactly the right trip. And I know my rider, I've seen them do it. I know they can do it. And I'll just reach out to the trainer and say, I think we'd be a good fit here, and we're extremely interested in riding your horse. And, hopefully we can team up. And a lot of times it works out. A lot of times it doesn't. It's just part of the job. I hear no a lot, so I'm used to it.
That's good. You got to build up that thick skin.
Oh yeah,
so.
I got thick skin.
No, one of the things I noticed about Ry in particular at Sam Houston was, he rode a lot of favorites coming to those last few races, particularly on opening during that opening weekend. But he gave the right ride to the types of, he made sure favorites didn't get in trouble, and that, they were right at the, perfect position at the top of the stretch to make their run. And that's what you can, when you have a great horse, that's what you just get out of the way and make sure you're, giving them the right. So yeah, that's really interesting to hear kind of that combination of things. So I guess one of my big questions for you is what's next? You've done all of this, really big stuff, I think, and you're going on multiple colonies, you got multiple jockeys at all these different colonies. So I'm curious, is your plan in 2022 to keep growing, to grow to more, to try to kind of merge your way into more colonies? Obviously you mentioned kind of having to hire maybe some more staff if you wanted to do that, but what are your plans for growing in 2022?
Absolutely. We definitely want to grow further than where we're at. Like I said, I truly believe we have the capabilities to represent a rider in every state. I truly do. It's going to take a lot of time, but that's what I'm here for. I'm here to grow that. And my next goals are the Mid-Atlantic circuit, and I'd like to break into New York as well. It just kind of seems like the correct funnel. We're everywhere in the Midwest, I feel, and we're going to be at some more new tracks this year in the Midwest as well. Prairie Meadows, a racetrack I've been to in the past. My plan is to represent riders over there. We didn't do that last year. Indiana, another place that I've done sparingly. I plan on being full-time there this year. I'd love to break into the Mid-Atlantic circuit. I'd love to do New York as well. So those are the goals coming up for sure. Try to break into those new circuits.
Well, that's exciting. And I will, if you break into the Mid-Atlantic, I'm in Northern Virginia. I'll just shoot over to, Laurel Park or Colonial Downs, and I'll pay you a
Well,
visit.
I was at Colonial this summer. We'll definitely do that again.
Okay.
Yeah, Reylu was at Colonial. So it went really well, and I definitely want to have a presence at Colonial. But definitely, I was talking definitely more, Laurel, Delaware, stuff like that.
Yeah,
Trying to break
Delaware
into
Park.
those.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's fertile. Yeah, a fertile area. A lot of racing going on there. So, so before I let you go, I feel like your success is rooted in principles that are kind of above and beyond just horse racing. And we have a lot of younger listeners on the podcast. And I'm curious what advice you would give to younger people who are looking to achieve their goals in whatever profession they want to set out to.
I just keep working. Honestly, my goal is to have as much information as possible, and the trainers know that, I think, now. And even if they're not riding me on a horse, they're going to call me and say, what do you think is going to be in this race? And that might not lead to a mount right there, but it's going to lead to business down the line, and just try to gather as much information as possible, be dependable, be there, be present, promote yourself. I try to promote myself as much as possible and my riders on social media. Just keep pushing. If you got to work a 15, 16-hour day, You got to work a 15 or 16-hour day. It's just the way it is, but it's all leading towards an ultimate goal. And I feel like if you can see that goal and you can push towards that goal, you're going to make it.
Great advice. Great advice. Well, Jose, thank you so much for taking your time. I really appreciate your perspective and your knowledge. And I hope 2022 is your best year yet. Can't wait to see what you accomplish this year.
Thank you very much. And thanks for having me. It was a great time.
A huge thank you again to Jose for his time, for joining me on the podcast. And you connect with Jose on social media at Twitter at the handle at @JoeSantos_33. You can find that link in the episode notes as well. He's a great follow. He keeps you up to date with all of his riders. He's very engaging on social media. Can't say enough good things about Jose. Just such a nice guy, and really the type of people we want to see in the sport. So thanks so much for tuning into this special interview episode. Remember to follow, download, rate, review, and share the Win Play Show on the podcast platform of your choice, and follow the Win Play Show on YouTube, which you can find linked in the episode notes. Follow me on Twitter at the handle @FailToMenace, or go to amalfimedia.com for all the horse racing content you need to get ready for the 2022 Run for the Triple Crown and more. Until next time, friends, I'm Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a great and prosperous day at the races and reminding you that it's now post time.